our viewers, and we wish to present our research, the research of our resilience research group formed in Károly Gáspár University of the Reformed Church, and our topic is examining perceptions of stress, well-being and fear during the coronavirus pandemic among Hungarian adolescents and their parents under the lockdown. Okay, although this is quite a new topic, we already have some researches on the coronavirus, the psychological effects of coronavirus, which caused a uniquely stressful situation for many. As we see, there are many examination research on how the coronavirus affected the psychological conditions of people, but relatively only just a few studies investigated how the pandemic affected the families as a microsystem, or particularly the children. What we found is that children seem more likely to develop symptoms of depression and anxiety, and they also more likely to experience regression, fear, irritability, and sudden changes in mood. We also found that the children's fear is significantly influenced by the fear of their parents, and one of the most interesting, because in Hungary the effects of pandemic was relatively mild, but other researches show that no personal experience is needed for feeling ill or feeling bad because of the pandemic, but the negative information was more important, shaping the fears than the personal experiences in both parents and children.
We would like to show you our aims. The study aims to investigate the following questions. What is the relationship between perceived stress, well-being and expressed fear among parents and children? How parents and their children do the participants verbalize their fear? How does the family as a microsystem work under the pandemic, particularly? How does the parents' mental well-being affect their children's mental health? How does the fear of the parents shape the fear of their children? You can see the methods. First, the data collection. An Animas online questionnaire was used to collect data that is available in the online supplementary. Convenience sampling was used. The questionnaires were filled up by Hungarian parents' children diets. Both the parents and the child received the same psychological questionnaires. First, the parents filled up the questions, then either the device were handed to the child who filled up the questions alone, or the parent helped them to filling it up. Data was collected between 30th of March and 27th of April 2020. All education and care facilities were closed. School, universities, daycare and most of the workplaces were closed, and staying at home and social distance were advised by the government. And you can see the participants, number 698. You can see gender, age, location and household income, parents and children, the two column. And you can see the measures. First, demography sheet and perceived stress scale, PSS. We used these questionnaires.
Okay, and here you can see that the descriptive statistics of the psychological questionnaires, the stress level among parents and children were extremely high to normal population because it was over 9.3 in both cases, and this is closer to clinical findings before. We also used the 5-item well-being scale, and I would like to just elaborate some items we used from metamorphosis tests. It's a French test adapted to Hungarian by Magda Szőnyi. And although this is quite a long test, this test offers open sentences more than 50, but we used only 3, and particularly in this study we analyzed only one group of answers for the second sentence. So the participants had to finish the following sentence, I'm afraid of, and we analyzed their answers. We used quantitative and qualitative method. At the same time, we coded the answers by the following aspects. Does the participant mention any fear or not? Does the participant mention their fear of getting ill, or friends or relatives getting ill? Do they mention fear of their own death or the friends of relatives' death? Do they mention financial problems? And one interesting part of our study was that we also investigated do they express self-reference, whether I statement or we statement. And we will present the results now. The stress level and well-being of parents, we found that neither the residing location nor the household income affects the stress level of the parents. And these demographic variables seems also not to affect the well-being of the parents. We also found a weak but significant negative correlation between the stress level and well-being of the children and perceived stress. So the higher is the perceived stress, the lower is the well-being in the case of children. And here in a figure you can see the stress level and the connections between the stress level and well-being of parents, and in the following the stress level of parents and well-being of children, which also had some relationship presented here.
And you can see here the relationship between the stress and well-being of the parents and their children. Both parents and children's stress level and well-being shown a weak but significant relationship is shown. The stress level of parents impacts the well-being of their children, and you can see in this figure stress level of children and well-being of children. And general description of fears. The majority of the parents and children mentioned something that they some kind of fear. Participants rather fear of their friends and relatives' illness or death than their own. Perceived stress was higher among those children who did not use I statements. However, this difference could not be detected among adults.
Here you can see a table, the descriptive statistics of sphere questionnaires, and you can see what the parents mentioned and what the children mentioned, and you can see the relationship in the third column, the relationship between parents and children. And as you can see, there is a parity between the different types of fears among children and their parents. So if they mention a fear of a friend's death, then probably the child also mention it. And you can see in the last row that children also express school fears. So we added another category when we were coding the answers, and many of them, nearly 9% of the children mentioned some kind of school fears, which did not appear in the case of parents, which was interesting because locking down the schools had an impact on the family as a microsystem, a family system as a whole, but no parents mentioned school fears.
And gender differences in fears. Adult females are more likely to verbalize any fear than adult males. Why the same gender difference is not shown for children.
Okay, and what we found, the relationship between the fears of parents and their children. We found that the fear of the parents has an impact on the fear of the children. Children of those parents who mentioned fear experienced a larger level of stress than those who did not. And as we found, parents who mentioned any fear have a significantly lower level of well-being and a higher level of stress than those who did not mention. Parents who fear to get ill or use I or V statement have a significantly higher level of stress. You can see the differences in stress level and their connection with fearful and fearless parents. Okay, another table summarizes the difference in well-being between fearful and fearless parents. Okay, what we can summarize in our study, so this is a part of a longitudinal study, so we are not finished yet, but the first phase of our research suggests that in our study interconnections among perceived stress, well-being and the verbalization of fear were examined. Perceived stress under the pandemic was higher compared to former results, both in healthy and clinical population. So as other researchers suggest, the pandemic was a highly stressful period for the families. It can be labeled as a crisis. Our results also show that in the examined parent population, the higher level of perceived stress correlates with lower levels of well-being. This connection was demonstrated in other previous researches too. And as you can see here, the majority of parents express their fear. In the case of children, the prevalence of fear is higher than among adults. However, the perceived stress is not significantly higher. We found a possible explanation for that might be that the children weaker self-control in expressing the self that makes verbalization easier for them. Their expression of feelings is not hindered by such beliefs, as even in hard times one has to remain strong. However, other studies show that the emotional regulation ability and the development of verbalization correlate in child development, so weaker verbal development predicts the higher occurrence of externalization. And finally, we have to mention that our research has certain limitations. For example, the instructions did not oblige participants to fill the forms alone, so the possible presence of the parent might influence the child's answer. Secondly, the number of fathers was quite low, so only 10% of the participants were adult males, so we couldn't make investigations we couldn't investigate differences in gender. And because of the longitudinal design, we asked email addresses. It was voluntary to give their email address, but those who fulfilled our request might be more motivated to please social expectations than expressing their inner feelings. But despite these limitations, we regard this research as a pioneer, as it was the first in this field in Hungary. We really find valuable that we use the complex methodology, we regarded family as a system, we also used quantitative and qualitative approaches, we were explorative and conformative at the same time, and it created the opportunity to get deeper insights into how Hungarian families face the epidemic. Our results carry practical importance for the professionals too, as these findings can serve as a theoretical background for family counseling or prevention programs in school. Information and growing knowledge might be tools in coping with fears and stress. And finally, we wish to say thank you for the Karli Gáspár University of the Reformed Church, who financed this research.
And some items of our research was based on the online questionnaire design by the Childhood Mental Disorders Research Group, for whom we hereby wish to express our gratitude.
And thank you for your attention.
Thank you.